Welcome to Outside the Box.
Print failures are such a common occurrence when it comes to 3D printing. But there is one that you can easily control that can help mitigate all those failed prints. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about temperature.
Somebody take my temperature.
And specifically, that temperature. It matters where you put your 3D printer, in this case our resin printer, because it is directly affected by the ambient temperature that's around it. And a lot of resins, when it comes to resin printing, have very specific temperatures that they like to be at, ideally, for the best results. And knowing that ahead of time can help save you on having a lot of print failures. The most important thing you can do is look at the manufacturer's suggestions with the resins that you use. The manufacturer usually lists on their bottle the ideal operating temperature for their specific resin. In this case, we have our anti-impact from Resi 1, and as it says on the side, the operating temp is 25 to 35 degrees Celsius, which equates to about 77 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which I don't think many homes are probably heated up to 77 degrees. I could be wrong. You may live in a home that's heated pretty well.
It's hot in here.
But here, in this space, we're at about 71 to 72 degrees. We now realize that our ambient temperature and what we're operating in is not warm enough or ideal enough for this to work. So what do? Well, we've got to heat it up. One thing the manufacturer suggests is putting this in boiling water.
Boil water? What am I, a chemist?
As it's boiling, take it off the burner and set it in there for 8 to 10 minutes. And what's that going to do? It's going to heat up this whole bottle and the resin inside. But the only thing about that is it works really well if you have a print that's probably less than 30 minutes. Anything beyond that, this starts to cool down. Let's say I heat it up to 85 degrees, it's in my vat, and I start printing. Well, if I have a build that's over an hour, by the time I get to that 120th layer, the temperature of this has changed drastically. And what happens then? A mid-build print failure.
I worked so hard!
So, how do we mitigate that problem? How do we get our vat temperature to stay consistent? There's actually a really simple solution. The Brew Belt. That's right, the Brew Belt. This device is for brewing, trying to keep a constant temperature while you're brewing. So what this is it's essentially just a wire, a conductive wire wrapped in silicone, and it is 120. It plugs right into the wall. So it will wrap right around our vat, and then we have the ability to shorten it by pulling this through. The great thing about this device is it keeps a constant temperature between about 80 to 90 degrees. We're right in that range, which is perfect for our anti-impact resin. Now, let's show you how this works. All right, we have our vat here. We're gonna go ahead and apply the Brew Belt around it. Now in our case, depending on your resin printer, we're gonna have to start from the back and work our way to the front. Now to do that, we're gonna use a little bit of double stick tape to help hold this in place. Let's apply this. There we go, guys. We have it installed, the Brew Belt on our vat. The wire on the back, the way I did it is we started in the back and we worked our way this way, allowing this wire to avoid our worm gear here and the carriage that's going to be coming down. So that's now out of the way. I will run a few tests just to make sure the temperature is fine, maybe get an infrared thermometer and just make sure the vat is actually getting heated up, but it looks great. And the cool thing is I can close the lid. All right, so we have our build plate all the way contacting the bottom of the vat, and our wiring is not interfering with anything, which is perfect. The band is plugged in, and I can already feel it heating up. Really awesome. So I think we need to run some prints. All right, guys, we've got our Brew Belt wrapped around our vat. We've got a steady temperature right now of about 83 degrees. It's fluctuating between that and around 85 into 80. So we've got this 5-degree temperature fluctuation, which is fine. It was easy to install, and it fits really nicely, even with the enclosure being able to come completely down and seal. It actually fits really nicely. No impeding on any of the worm gears or the carriage that's driving up the build plate. It's working really well. So with the resin we had, we went ahead and we poured it in and we let it acclimate to the temperature of the vat for about 20 minutes before we ran our first print. That way the resin could, it was sitting at ambient temperature in the bottle, shook it up, poured in here, let it acclimate to the vat temp, and then we're ready to print. We're running a couple prints, just some ball joints, just to kind of do some more evaluation tests, but yeah, really excited for this simple addition to our print setup. And we have finished our first print and build. It worked great having the Brew Belt, I want to say beer belt, the Brew Belt wrapped around the vat. One thing I will have to say is the double stick tape is not quite holding up as much as we would like it to, but it's still staying in place because this helps hold it, and the tightness of the silicone cinched around the vat holds it really well. So let's get these off and see what we got. And just like that, our prints are done. They turned out amazing. We did these ball joints pieces that'll be part of our Cavaxis action figure. They fit together really well. I can't say enough about this resin. It is fun to work with. I mean, it is challenging, but it's fun to work with, and it yields just really robust parts, which is something you'd want when you're building an articulating action figure. Yeah, the Brew Belt worked great. I mean, it did what it was intended to do. It heated up the vat. The only thing with the Brew Belt is time. It takes time for it to reach the temperature that you want your resin to be at. Now, our resin was between 77 and 95 degrees. That's a wide range. And if it was around 78 to 79, you could see some failures start to happen. But as it encroached to 80 or above, no problems. So keeping the temperature around between 80 and 90 is probably ideal for this resin. Now, in future, I want to figure out a way to make this heat up a little bit quicker. Whether it's putting a fan in, a secondary heater, something to make the process not one where I have to wait a lot. But I am happy with what happened here. We're going to run some actual parts on it for our action figure, and you will see that in the next video. But until then, we'll catch you on the next one.